Hello guys, and today is our new episode of CU podcast, and we have very special guest today, the founder of Wikipedia.
So Wikipedia is a nonprofit organization. That's actually very important. What I always say, imagine a world in which every single person on the planet is given free access to the sum of all human knowledge. And that's what we're doing.
What do you think, what is the key of this popularity?
I have to say, I didn't do any research.
Really?
Uzbek language, Wikipedia is nearly 300,000 entries, so that's bigger than even English language. And I always say, well, machine translation is basically terrible. But in the last 2 or 3 years, machine translation has dramatically improved.
Yeah, AI or ChatGPT. Is there any influence to Wikipedia?
All of the large language models, ChatGPT to Gemini, they're all trained on Wikipedia.
Hello guys, and today is our new episode of CU podcast, and we have a very special guest today, the founder of Wikipedia. Very nice to meet you. And if we're ready, I think we're gonna start.
Yeah.
We're gonna start with the first question, and the question is, how did you came out with the idea of creating Wikipedia, and what type of challenges you faced during this big project?
Yeah. So I first had the idea for Wikipedia, I would say back in 1999, which is 2 years before I started Wikipedia. And I had it from watching the growth of free software, open source software, as most people call it. And I saw programmers coming together to collaborate in new ways using the internet to share code and to share updates with each other. And I realized that that type of collaboration could extend beyond software into all kinds of cultural works. And so I had the idea for the encyclopedia. So I founded a project called Newpedia, which was the predecessor, with the vision of a free encyclopedia for everyone. But the problem with Newpedia is I didn't really know much about online communities. I didn't really know how to organize it. And we, at the time, thought in order to be respectable, we needed to be even more academic than a traditional encyclopedia. So very top-down. People had to fax in their CV before they were allowed to edit or before they were allowed to submit something for consideration. There was a 7-stage review process to get anything published, and it failed. And it failed because it wasn't very fun. It was very intimidating for people to try and contribute. And so then we stumbled across the wiki concept. A guy who worked for me, Jeremy Rosenfeld, showed me the wiki, and I said, "Oh, that's interesting," So in January 2001, I set up the first sort of Wikipedia, the first wiki for our project. Wikis that existed for several years. And in 2 weeks, we had as much work done as we had in almost 2 years. So it made a huge impact. And so, yeah, we just started writing, just started working. And of course, there were many challenges. In the early days, the software was very, very simple.
Yeah.
There weren't even real accounts. Like you could set your username while anybody else could pretend to be you because there weren't any passwords. So that was one of the first things I added was passwords. So you can protect your account and so forth. But we very quickly, it was exciting because we were finally getting some work done and just grew and grew after that.
But still nowadays, Wikipedia is one of the most popular tools that are used nowadays among teens, among older people. There's no age limit or target population who follows Wikipedia and search from that. And what do you think, what is the key of this popularity?
Well, I think Wikipedia is, it serves a very fundamental human need, which is very simple, straightforward knowledge, information. And we do it in a very clean and simple way. There's no advertising in Wikipedia. There's only the entries. And because of the open community model for the content creation, Wikipedia is enormous. It's really comprehensive compared to a traditional encyclopedia. I know I was just checking this morning in Uzbek language. Wikipedia is nearly 300,000 entries. So that's bigger than even English language Britannica was back in the day. So it's even though that's not as big as English Wikipedia, which of course is really big, it's still very comprehensive, and it's just easily accessible.
Yeah.
It's easy to find in search engines and so on. So people are always using it.
Yeah. For me as a student as well, for example, if I want to like search for some information, searching from articles is giving me kind of like more clear information. But for general and detailed some stuff, it's better to search from Wikipedia. It's easier. I don't need to go somewhere, some library, find a book that need to show me this exact information. And I mean, for this kind of project, you got a lot of good reverts, and you got from Forbes, from Times, if we're not mistaken.
Yeah.
And what do you think? What is the most kind of like the reward, or let's say the awards that you've received
Oh,
for this project? Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's all been very well received by people, and so people always give me awards, but I always say I'm the smallest part of it. It's really the community writes all of this. I'm just the figurehead, and so I only really feel it's to accept on behalf of the community. But yeah, we've gotten a lot of recognition. I would say that the Princess of Asturias Award in Spain was very, very big. I didn't realize how big until we won, and there was an enormous amount of press in the Spanish language media. But yeah, no, it's very exciting.
Yeah. But when the time comes, like if we're about to compare like the popularity of Wikipedia, like let's say 6 years or even 7 years ago, and comparing to now, is there any differences that might clearly will be seen in numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you'll see is like Wikipedia has in the larger language versions really been, one of the most largest and most popular websites. But what is really exciting to me, and most people won't see this, is the growth of Wikipedia in all the other languages. So, for example, starting in about, I think it was 2020, there was a big uptick in interest in Uzbek Wikipedia, and the number of editors more than doubled in a few years' time. Similarly, we're seeing across India big growth in a lot of the Indian languages, African languages, and of course, in every place in the world, there are different challenges and different complexities and different things that we need to deal with. So, for example, across sub-Saharan Africa, internet connectivity can be quite weak, although it's improving very quickly. Obviously, literacy rates make a huge difference. The availability of sources in native language, the level of international, people who speak English and so forth, that's always helpful because many sources are only in English, so people need to grapple with that. So every place in the world is a little different, but we're seeing really fantastic and exciting growth in many, many regions.
But still, I mean, kind of like the main idea is that all the information from your words, as you were saying, that the knowledge should be free, and Wikipedia provides all the necessary knowledge and kind of like facts that are pretty well accessible if you know how to use the tool and if you know how to Google the information.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, one of the things that I'm very excited about is, so for many, many years, people say, oh, what about machine translation? And I always say, well, machine translation is basically terrible. It's not good enough. Sometimes our community uses it a little bit, but it's just so much work to fix something. But in the last 2 or 3 years, machine translation has dramatically improved. And I think that there's exciting opportunities there. So as we see volunteers in places which have small languages, small language versions of Wikipedia, they begin to be able to use machine translation to help them speed up the work and to do this. We always believe in having a human in the loop. Like we don't really just do massive machine translation because it's still not good enough for our standards. But it's, it's pretty good. You can, if you're speaking, maybe I'm going to pick Thai, the Thai language, and you're speaking maybe English and Vietnamese. So you want to translate between them all. You could probably just triple the work. If you had to hand translate everything, it would take a long time. You do a quick translation and it's pretty good, and you just check it and correct a few small errors. This is very fast. So this is part of what's fueling the sharing of knowledge globally, is that we see the language barriers are becoming less and less, and that's exciting. I think it's exciting for the world.
Yeah, everyone can easily use it, no matter whether you're bilingual or you know only one language.
Yeah, exactly.
The next question is basically about we know that like latest years we have new more project that help people to kind of like automate their like information, the information that they want to get, and coming up with the AI or chat GPT. Is there any influence to Wikipedia, and kind of like, is there any aspect where you guys correlate with each other, or even like
Well, so all of the large language models, all of the famous ones, from ChatGPT to Gemini to Llama, etc., they're all trained on Wikipedia data, and it makes up a big part of their training materials. And so that's good, I think, for the world, because I always joke you wouldn't really want to use a large language model that's trained only on Twitter, for example, full of crazy things and angry people and so on. You want that calm, sort of very fact-based. So that's a big aspect of what's going on. We're actually looking at large language models to say, okay, how can they be used to help support our work, to help support our community? So the first thing we should say is they're not good enough to write Wikipedia entries. They can do a passable job if it's a very famous topic, but on less famous topics, they hallucinate, they make things up, etc. So it's just not very useful. But we do see opportunities for us to use large language models in our community. I mentioned one already when we talked about machine translation. A lot of machine translation is now using large language models for improvement. But also we can look at things like, so imagine a short entry in Wikipedia, and it has only maybe 5 sources. It's quite easy to feed in the Wikipedia entry and the text of all the 5 sources and ask the question, is there anything in the sources that should be in Wikipedia but isn't? Or is there anything in the Wikipedia entry that is not supported by the sources? So if you do this, and I've done this personally, just tried this in experimentation, what you find is it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. It's good enough to make what I think it would be a very useful tool for our community. That's a little bit fun, which is like, oh, an AI found this quote in this article, in this news report, that it thinks should be in Wikipedia. Do you agree? And you look at it, and you go, yes, okay, click it, boom, you add it, and it's very quick. That kind of thing is very exciting, again, because it adds to how productive the community can be. The other thing that we're really focused a lot on is neutrality. How do we make sure that Wikipedia isn't politically biased, that it is calm, and that sort of explains everything clearly and takes into account all the factors? Well, large language models, they have their own flaws, right? But the idea of having a job that's constantly running over Wikipedia, looking for articles to say, is this article biased? Does it reflect the sources? Are the sources biased? We need to maybe broaden where we're collecting sources. And again, it might not be perfect, but if it's pretty good at helping the community find these things, because sometimes they happen and nobody's really noticed, somebody's edited something and made it biased, it could be very useful for us to really stay focused on these things. So I think there's many exciting opportunities,
coming to the editing of the information is Wikipedia. I think it's a bit problematic here, don't you think, that some people can easily enter and change the information, and after that, those people who are again entering the same web, so they can see that there's misinformation. How you guys dealing with this problem?
So I mean, this is one of the complexities, I would say, of the model is, of course, if everything is open, then someone can come and misbehave and do something they shouldn't be doing. But the community is watching. Everything's very transparent. And so what's really important is, do we have a healthy community that's looking after things and monitoring things? That's always been really key, is to say we need a diverse community. We need a thoughtful community who aren't sort of leaning in one direction or the other and trying to be neutral and fact-based. And those values are really, really important for Wikipedia. Of course, at any time someone can come and vandalize an entry, and that's a shame. But what we find is, over time, it's proven to be very, very strong. I mean, when we look at academic research on the quality of Wikipedia, it rivals that of a traditional encyclopedia. And so it does work, but it's just complicated.
Yeah.
And of course, for us, like what we think about is, what are the tools that our community needs in order to keep control of things? How do we make sure that trolls don't just sort of annoy everybody all the time? So, there are administrators who are elected by the community, and they can temporarily block people, or they can lock pages for a short time. All of these things are tools to calm down a situation if somebody's trying to be really biased or angry or so on. And we have a lot of social rules around no personal attacks. We're not a wide open free speech forum. So if you want to yell at people you disagree with, well, you should just go to X, Twitter, or something like that. There's plenty of places to yell at each other. We don't try to do that here. We try to sort of say, okay, let's reflect. Let's see, what are the common grounds? What are the facts that we can all agree on?
Yes.
And what are the, if there are divergent viewpoints that are all, legitimate. I mean, some will be right, some will be wrong, but they're legitimate in the sense that reasonable people could take this position. Then we need to describe that fairly, to explain, here's how people talk about this. Here's the arguments for and against, and so forth. The idea is for a reader to come in and not to just hear one side of a debate, but to come away saying, okay, now I understand the debate. That's really important.
Okay, but comparing to the other platforms that we have nowadays, Wikipedia is one of the platforms that does not use advertising. And why you didn't include this thing, and you not using this?
So Wikipedia is quite unique. I mean, certainly in the top 50 websites, I don't think there's anything like Wikipedia in that sense. And so, for one thing, so I put Wikipedia into the charity. So Wikipedia is a nonprofit organization. So it's like maybe the Red Cross or Crescent. And that's actually very important. And, there are good reasons to not use an advertising model for Wikipedia. And I don't have anything against advertising as a model for busy things. It's completely fine. But for Wikipedia, you wouldn't want to go and read an entry about, I don't know, pick any company, maybe Shell, oil company, right? And then you're reading about Shell, the oil company, and then at the top is an advertisement for Shell. You say, oh, this seems like it's corporate propaganda or whatever. You really want that clarity of mind. The other thing, and this is often overlooked, is when you have an ad-supported model, then there's a real push to think about, how do we get more traffic, more eyeballs on the page? And so you suddenly get clickbait headlines, get sort of a focus on all kinds of material that maybe isn't the most serious material. Whereas with Wikipedia, it's really just a pure love of knowledge and so forth that drives everything. And so certainly, at the Wikimedia Foundation, which is the nonprofit that runs Wikipedia, we don't, if you ask me some detailed questions about page views and things, well, I sort of know, but we don't really obsess over it. It's not that important. What we do obsess over is the health of the community. Are people having fun? Are they doing quality work? Growth in all the languages of the world. How do we support different communities? One good, small example is here in Uzbek Wikipedia, there's a switch you can switch, and this is fairly recent. I don't know when they put it in, but you can switch between Latin script and Cyrillic, which is easy to do. But for this area, some people are more comfortable with one or the other, like older people like Cyrillic, and so it's really simple. But you don't think about this for English Wikipedia because it's not really relevant there. And so that's the sort of thing that we have to focus a lot of attention on. How do we get it right for every single person on the planet?
Sure. But Wikipedia has been more than 20 years of their existence. And is there any updates that are planning to came out or anything new that we can wait from Wikipedia?
Yeah, I mean, I would say most of the changes are invisible to most people. So, improvements in the editing tools, if we think about using large language models to support the editing community, most of your readers aren't going to notice that. They're just going to say, oh, that Wikipedia is quite good. And they won't know why or understand what is happening. We won't sort of turn into TikTok. We're very happy just being an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
I think we will over time as the tools get easier. I think there's a big space in the world of Wikipedia for more, not necessarily video, but animations, things like this that could be useful knowledge tools. I can give one good example. I know that Central Asian University is very focused on medical things in general, and you're a fourth-year medical student.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but you can imagine if you're trying to explain blood flow in the heart and the 4 areas of the heart. I don't know. I know nothing about this. You can describe it in words.
Sure.
Or you can have a static diagram.
It's more clear.
But if you can see, in a video, you can see it on animation. So this is very good. Very similar in a certain way would be like, how does an internal combustion engine work with the pistons going up and down and the gases coming in and out?
It's going to be more personalized.
We could have more things like that. And then, I mean, personalized is interesting because we don't, so in the mobile app, we have experimented a little bit with suggesting articles and looking at data for like, if you've read this, what would you like to read next?
Yeah.
But we're not really focused a lot on that.
It's a big data,
It's big data and also we don't keep much data on things. We try to be privacy respecting and so, but even statistical data, like one of the problems you get is recommendation algorithms can be fantastic for getting more page views, but they're also unfortunately often fantastic for addiction and maybe promoting content that isn't the best. And that's not really our goal at Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So, I want, if you've read something in Wikipedia and you get a recommendation, it should be something interesting and thoughtful, not, oh, well, if you're interested in this, then maybe you're interested in the new Batman movie, because that's popular. You might get a lot of clicks, but it's not really relevant to the experience. So we try to be thoughtful about things like that.
But you have another project, which is called Fandom.
Yeah.
And it's pretty different from Wikipedia.
Yeah, it is different, but it's also similar. So, I mean, Fandom is a for-profit company and it's advertising supported, but it's very community driven. So over 200,000 fan community. So, typical example would be like Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU movies. So all the Marvel movies, there's a huge wiki, fans are writing and sort of documenting everything about it. So it's similar to Wikipedia in that sense, but it is different because it's really aimed at entertainment, pop culture, video gaming, things like that. So for video games, for example, there's wikis that have walkthroughs that sort of help you with each level and things like this. So it's different. It's also fun. But
was it really hard for you to switch from one type of project to another and this transition from different directions?
Not really. I mean, it's interesting because the two organizations are completely independent. And I, I'm on the board of both and I do this and that, but there's a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences because, one is a charity, the other's a business and so forth. But there's, other things are, you have to maintain the trust of the community that you're serving. You need to sort of support the editors and support the people creating the content. And so, it's different, but similar.
But is there still some projects that you're planning to develop?
I'm always working on new things. One of the things that I have right now is a pilot project, a new type of social network. So it's called Trust Cafe. You can just go on trustcafe.io. It's a small pilot project right now, and I don't promote it very much and so forth. But because we're not ready yet, but we're sort of in that, I would call it like I talked earlier about the Nupedia era and then the Wikipedia era. So we're sort of in the Nupedia era. We've got a small community. We're discussing ideas. We're talking about things. And the idea is to have a social network that doesn't use addictive algorithms, that promotes content based on the sort of the likes of the most trusted members of the community as they rate each other and so forth and so on. And there's a lot of interesting questions. How do you do this, and how well does it work? And I'm enjoying it, but it's very small. We've just got 2.5 developers working on it, and so it's really thinking. And I haven't done any, I haven't raised money or anything like this because I want to figure it out first. See if I can come up with some great ideas.
From where you're getting this amount of motivation to still trying and working on different projects?
I basically I try to get up every day and do whatever's the most fun thing to do. Just what's fun and interesting, So this is this is why I'm here in Tashkent, because I get an invitation to come to Uzbekistan. It's fantastic. I've never been there.
Yeah,
I've always sort of seen it. I've heard it. Yeah, it's very good. So so because of that, I don't. Nothing I do feels like work to me. I just am doing whatever is interesting. So that's just how it's easy to keep energy if you're just doing things you think are fun all the time.
Yeah. In the end of the day, like all the projects that you've done, they all have kind of like impact on all the communities, different communities. Do you feel responsible for the impact of your projects?
Oh, definitely. I mean, one of the things that, and I would say our community in Wikipedia in particular feels this very strongly, that we've become part of the infrastructure of the world, and people do rely on us. And so we have to take very seriously quality, being thoughtful, being neutral. All of those values of Wikipedia have made us successful, but it also has made us important to people. And we have to continue to take that very seriously. But what's interesting too is when we talk a little bit about fandom, and I talk to community leaders there, and they're very passionate about looking after their wiki and their community, and they're writing out for the fans, and they're writing for each other, and they care about quality. They want it to be really good, and so, and they also just like the personality type of people who are really into wikis is very different from people who are very into social media. They're not trying to show off. They're not, they just want to, maybe they're trying to show off that they know a lot about Star Trek or whatever it might be. But it's just a very different culture from like influencers or political argument and all that.
Yeah. But still, Wikipedia does not need the advertisement because it's a useful tool, and as a project itself has been like a lot of years, let's say, on the market, and people are using it.
Yeah.
But what do you think, within this 20 years, does Wikipedia kind of like reached its own peak, or it's still?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, certainly I would say, in the mature markets. So if you look in, for example, like the US, the number of people using Wikipedia is already everyone. So you can't really grow from that,
Sure.
You can grow in quality, in comprehensiveness, and so forth. There's lots of work to do. But most of that isn't going to change anything about the popularity. So for example, if consider a small town in the US that has one article about it that's 2 pages long. Well, now you can have someone was the mayor of that town 50 years ago. Do we have an entry on that person? Probably not. Okay, when somebody gets around to adding that, is it going to make Wikipedia 10 times more popular? No, it's a very obscure topic, right? It doesn't really move the needle on that at all. But that's okay because I think we're not obsessed with perpetual growth. However, in other places where we do see usage of Wikipedia is small because the amount of content in that language is quite small, that's still a big growth area.
Sure. We always tend to ask the last question for our guests, and we're saying to our guests to kind of like express their idea that they were keeping inside from their whole life within their whole life, and to express it to the whole world. If you would have a chance to talk to billions of people, what you would like to say?
Well, I mean, I guess it's what I always say, imagine a world in which every single person on the planet is given free access to the sum of all human knowledge. And that's what we're doing. So that, for me, that's like the organizing idea for all my work with Wikipedia. It's the great passion, and it comes from actually a moment, when the internet, I think when most people first learned of the internet and the web back in the early days, it was very exciting to think about, oh, wow, like everyone can communicate with everyone. I remember I got an email from someone in Australia. I was like, this is just, my head is exploding. Like I never thought I would even know anyone who's ever been to Australia. Suddenly you can communicate with people around the world. And that's what the internet was about. Then at the dot-com boom, it seemed to be about pop-up ads and selling dog food and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is back to the core heart of what this technology can do for us all, is everyone having at their fingertips access to good quality information for free. So that's my idea. People seem to like it, so it's good.
From where did you get the motivation to create this project? From the very beginning, because probably you didn't have this tool when you were young, and now we're using it.
Yeah. So, well, when I was young, we had the World Book Encyclopedia, which is an encyclopedia for children. We also had Britannica, a very old set of Britannica. And I loved the encyclopedia. I just loved looking and learning any random thing. And I would sometimes just go and pick a volume and open and just read whatever I was interested in. So I always loved that. And then when I first started using the internet, I was just very excited by the whole idea of the internet and so on and so forth. And, I remember finding it very surprising to me. I had never really considered the possibility that we could have such a tool with, you could just search anything and find everything and so forth. But of course, before Wikipedia, searching for information was not always good. You didn't get good quality results back and so forth. And I really felt a need for an encyclopedia online. And then, I always talk about seeing the growth of open source software, which was very surprising to me. I was a business student at the time. And
You're studying business.
I was studying business, yeah. And I remember finding the Emacs code editor, which is quite old-fashioned now. And when you use Emacs, there's a certain keystroke, and you get the Emacs manifesto, which was this sort of, at the time, it seemed like a crazy document about how all software should be free and so forth and so on. I thought, oh, well, that's whatever. That's a bit crazy, but that doesn't sound like that would work. Because at the time, the way most software was sold was, in a box on a shelf in a store, and you would go and you would get the discs and you would install it on your computer and so forth. The internet, was just beginning, and the idea that you would just download software and that programmers could come together and write it and give it away for free seemed far-fetched. But as it turned out, as I saw, it was growing, and that was exciting. How does this work? Why are people doing it? What's the motivation? And then you begin to learn. It's a lot of different motivations, a lot of different ideas. And it was working. Like all the software that really runs the internet, the really fundamental building blocks are open source software. All the languages are open source and so on. And that model works really, really well for quality control and so on and so forth. So, I just thought this is quite an exciting movement.
Yeah, for sure. For every project, before kind of like creating, you need to do a research on that. And before creating a project itself, you're doing research, you're checking the feasibility, how it's going to be, how it's going to get popular, or will it be even useful for like communities?
I mean, I have to say, I didn't do any research.
Really?
And partly it's just me. And I just like to do whatever I think is interesting. And if it becomes successful, I'm happy. So I just thought, I didn't know, I'm a very optimistic person. So I thought it could be big, but it wasn't really my thinking. I was just like, wow, I can see you could make this, right? You could do this and get a group of people together and write an encyclopedia. Maybe it would be small, maybe it would be big. I didn't know. So I didn't really research, but also that time on the internet was a time when you felt just get started, like just start building something, just start doing something, because there might be a business model in the future. There might be a way, it just like there's this huge open field for exploration and creativity, which, by the way, isn't finished yet.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think what we're looking at now with the advent of large language models, the incredible improvement in how easy it is to code.
Yeah.
I'm a programmer, but not a very good one. I do it as a hobby, and I don't do it professionally and so forth. And yet, for my little hobby projects, where I'm just playing around with ideas, I'm 10 times more productive than I was, because in my code editor, there's automated suggestions, AI-driven suggestions. If I have a problem, if I had a problem as not a very good coder, I would go and Google the error message, and you hope somebody else had the problem. So now you just ask ChatGPT and it explains it to you. And it is imperfect. Sometimes it goes a little crazy, but it's very helpful. And so I feel like today there are many, many new potential opportunities because of the breakthroughs in AI that are going to be very exciting, things that people are just beginning to think about, just beginning to do.
Yeah.
That, who knows? So a friend of mine, Demis Hassabis, who runs DeepMind at Google, just won the Nobel Prize in chemistry. And the work that they did at DeepMind that he won the Nobel Prize for was the AlphaFold, which is protein folding. I don't even know what that is. I mean, he's explained it to me many times, but I still it's above my medical knowledge.
Yeah, sure.
But it's an absolute revolution, and it's suddenly really fueling. I mean, what they say is it used to take one PhD student most of their career as a PhD student to sequence one protein. And now they did them all. They just did them all using this incredible
a lot of
computing power, But that means once those are done, then the next phase that humans build on top of that is drug discovery, research into diseases and things like this. Like, it's a whole new field. Like, it's as if we've just discovered the cell, and that's exciting, which means that all kinds of new kinds of drug companies will come, new kinds of, all this is amazing. We see now the advent of another friend of mine. I get to meet a lot of interesting people. So Jennifer Doudna won the Nobel Prize for CRISPR, gene editing techniques. This, again, is an enormous field. And of course, the complexity of the genetic sort of interactions and gene expression and all of that.
It's easily cut the fragments off.
Cut the fragments and change. But what's going to happen if you change? This is, again, like huge computational problems becoming tractable for the first time. So, this was the era when CRISPR was invented, gene editing. Now we're moving into the era when amazing creations will happen from it. And so that's all very exciting. So anyway, that's a digression about how excited I am about the advent of new scientific techniques.
No, it's pretty good to see that you're still kind of like searching and craving for some new things and working on them. Yeah. I think we can finish here. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. It was really interesting to talk with you. Really
Yeah, very good.